Hey Joe fans, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to the Kamado Joe Cooking Channel. Today we're going to introduce something a little new. We're going to try out. We're going to maybe call this little segment Joe Talk, for lack of a better term. Periodically I'm going to put together a video that's an informational video more so than a cooking video, and we're going to look at some things that I think are worth sharing. And in our inaugural issue of Joe Talk this week, I'm going to show you some things around the net that you might be interested in. And one of the first things I'd like to introduce you to is there are a couple of other YouTube channels out there that are run by some friends of mine that also cook on Kamado Joe grills, and I'd like to introduce you to these guys and show you a little bit about their YouTube channels. The first one is a channel called T-Roy Cooks, and this is by Troy down in Texas. And Troy has a Big Joe among other grills, and I'm going to give you a link in my video description here to Troy's channel, and I really think you should check him out. He's done a lot of neat things with his Big Joe so far, and he's really enjoying cooking on it. The second channel is John at a channel called Big Meat Sunday. John lives out in Southern California. John has just recently acquired a Kamado Joe Classic, and he's going to be doing some really interesting stuff with the Kamado Joe Classic, so I want you to try to check him out as well. And then we have Alan at the Grilling Network. He's also in Southern California. He's got a Big Joe among other grills, and he does a lot of good cooks on his Big Joe as well. And each of these guys also has several other different types of grills that are not Kamados, and they do a really a good bit of really great cooks. I mean, I follow these guys, and I think you ought to give them a chance as well. Have a look at their channels, and you will be inspired by a lot of things you see on each of these. Some other things I've seen around the net lately, mainly on Facebook and mainly through the Kamado Joe Facebook page. I got a couple of fan photos I'd like to show you. Our first photo comes from Joe John, who is in Shell Knob, Missouri, and in this photo he's smoking ribs on Kamado Joe from Table Rock Lake, which is in I believe it's in southwestern Missouri. I had an opportunity to visit this area of the country one time when I visited a little town called Reed Spring, Missouri, and this Table Rock Lake is an absolutely beautiful place. So when I saw this photo, it brought back some memories of the trip that I had made out there, and it's just really a nice looking shot, nice looking view from John's deck. Our next fan photo for this month is from Rakesh Kothari. He's showing off his Kamado Joe trifecta, as they're affectionately known. He has all three of the Kamado Joe grills. He's got the Joe Jr., the Classic, and the Big Joe all in red, and those are looking real good. And for those of you who follow my channel here, this is Ashni's father, Ashni, who helps us out introducing our cooks every week. This is Ashni's grill setup, so you know what she's got behind the scenes now. Besides that Joe Jr. that she cooks on, she's got quite an arsenal of Kamado Joe product. Our final fan photo of the month this month comes from San Antonio, Texas, and the owner's name is Charlie Pumarejo or Pumarejo. I hope I haven't butchered that name too badly, but this is a beautiful looking paella that he's put together on his Joe, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time and just never gotten around to doing it. But after seeing Charlie's photo of this paella here, I think we're going to do a paella cook pretty soon here for the Kamado Joe channel. I think that's going to be a really fun cook to do, and it's going to be tasty. It's going to be absolutely delicious, so stay tuned. You know, we're going to get that going on our channel here before too terribly long. And if you want to have a chance to have your photo featured here on a fan photo of the month, just be sure and post your photos to the Kamado Joe Facebook page, and we're gonna, you know, periodically grab some of those photos there so we can feature them in these videos. In our next segment here, I want to take a look at a couple of interesting cooks I've seen lately. Our first one comes from a gentleman named Justin Shuttrump. I'm not sure, once again, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Justin is in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and he's got 20 pounds of ribs on his Kamado Joe Classic. And you can look at this photograph here and see how he's rolled these up, and they're separated by looks like bamboo barbecue skewers. It's a really interesting way to get a lot of ribs on a Kamado Joe Classic. And this is one of the workarounds I give people. I get asked a lot, do I absolutely have to have a big Joe? And when that question comes to me, you know, I talk about space, and this is one way to work around not having the additional space if you want to roll your ribs up like this. And I've cooked ribs like this before, and it does work just fine. So I'd like to thank Justin for posting this photo up. Our next fan photo from this month comes from Brad Rocco of Bexley, Ohio. And Brad's got a couple of beer can burgers going here on his Joe. The beer can burgers are becoming quite popular, and like I said, when I made our video, we saw these first on the Barbecue Pit Boys YouTube channel, and this concept is really amazing because there's so much you can do with it. You know, you've got that big roughly 3/4 of a pound of ground beef with the beer can impression made in it that you can fill with absolutely anything you like, and you can wrap that guy in bacon, cook it on the grill till it's done, and you've got a meal there. It's a bunless big burger, and these things are really good. They're really easy to make, they're quick to make, and they're crowd favorites. So definitely give those a try, and I'd like to thank Brad for posting that photo. Our last photo we've got from Ryan Moon, who lives up near Toronto in Canada. He calls this buffalo shots, and he's made a mess of buffalo wings on his Kamado Joe, and he set them on shot glasses that have blue cheese dressing and buffalo sauce in the glass. And I thought that was a really neat presentation there. The directions for cooking your wings, you can use any kind of wing recipe you want and cook them however you like, but give this a try next time you do a party and make a dip shot glass like that, where you can just mix that dip together. That looked really good. Presentation's everything. I think, you know, we eat with our eyes as well as our mouth. So I'd like to thank everybody for posting these photos. All this stuff that I've got here today comes from our Facebook page, the Kamado Joe Facebook page at facebook.com/Kamado Joe. So if you're not currently following us over there, feel free to join in and post your photos. I like to feature those photos on our Kamado Joe Facebook page, and I'll also be featuring them here in future episodes of Joe Talk. So the final thing I'd like to look at today is I want to take some user questions, and I posted a request for cooking questions on our Facebook page recently, and I got a couple of good ones that I want to look at here today. The first one comes from Seth Farnsworth on our Facebook page, and Seth says, during long smokes, 12 to 18 hours, I've had some issues with airflow and therefore temperature falling due to ash accumulation. What's the best strategy to deal with ash on a very long cook so the temperature doesn't drop? Okay, first of all, I asked Seth how often this happens, and he said it happens frequently. It doesn't. I haven't had it happen that often to me. I've had it happen exactly one time since I've been cooking on Kamado Joes, and that was on about a 14-hour-long cook. But the strategy I like to use to minimize the possibility of that happening is, if I know I'm going to be doing a long cook, I usually start with fresh charcoal, and I will take some of the larger pieces of charcoal from my bag and place them in the bottom of the grill over the holes in the fire grate. So I've got larger pieces down there that keep a larger area open, and once I've got the larger pieces positioned over the fire grate, then I will dump in charcoal directly from the bag so the smaller pieces aren't settling in over the air holes. The ash accumulation I don't really think is the problem here. What happens is some of the smaller pieces of charcoal, as the charcoal settles, they settle down over that fire grate and they compact, and they can restrict your airflow. If you have that happen, one of the things that I find the easiest thing to do is get some tool or gloves or whatever, and I just lift the grill off and set it aside, lift the whole rack out, set it aside, and then I'll just stir the charcoal with my ash tool and dump in more charcoal if needed. Once again, I've never run out of charcoal on a long cook either if I start with a fairly full firebox. So that would be my suggestion. Give that a try and keep the larger pieces of charcoal in the beginning down at the bottom, and you really shouldn't have any problems with that. It's not something that should happen frequently. So maybe the charcoal you're using may be too high of a concentration of small bits of charcoal rather than larger pieces, but the larger pieces you got, the better airflow you're going to get through your grill. So I hope that answers your question, or hope it gives you an opportunity or an idea to try something a little different there. Our next question comes from Doug Keller on Facebook, and this is one I enjoy answering. I get asked this a lot. So Doug says, I've done burgers, chops, steaks, and ribs for over 30 years, and I love them better when I cook them on my Kamado Joe. But in other kitchen-oriented recipes, if you do them on the Kamado Joe, should you follow the same temperature directions for the Kamado? If it can be done in the oven or stove, I want to do it on my Kamado. What's your suggestion? Doug, my suggestion is right on, brother. That's exactly what I love about a Kamado. A Kamado is not just a grill, it's not just a smoker, it is a charcoal-fired oven, and anything you can cook in your oven inside, you can also cook it on the Kamado Joe. And the answer to your question is yes, you follow the exact same temperature directions that the recipe calls for. If it calls for an hour at 350, then that's what you're going to want to do on the grill as well. One of the things I've learned during the time I've been cooking on grills is the temperature guidelines that you'll find in recipes, they're not always set in stone. You can there's more than one way to skin a cat. In other words, you can do, if something calls for an hour at 350, you might be able to do it for an hour and a half at 300. You might be able to do it for 45 minutes at 400. It depends on what you're cooking and whether or not it's going to get too brown or not brown enough, or whether it's got a lot of sugar in it that's going to burn and turn black. There's a lot of ways to cook the same recipes, and I would, as a guideline to start with, yes, do follow the recipe instructions and see how it turns out for you. And if you feel that you need a darker crust, you may want to cook it for a little shorter time at a little higher temperature, or if it got too dark, you would do the opposite, cook it for a little longer time at a lower temperature, and just experiment with it. Experimentation is fun on the grill, and even if you don't get great results, you're still going to have a lot of really good food there to deal with. So yeah, give that a try. Post us some stuff on Facebook, show us what you're doing outside of the standard barbecue fare, and let us know how it goes. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this first issue. It's starting to sprinkle down rain out here, so I got to get back in the house. If you would like to have your question answered on a future episode of Joe Talk, you can either post that question to me on our Facebook page, or you can email it to me at this email address here, john.setzler@kamadojoe.com. And keep on posting your cooks and pictures to Facebook, and you might find some of those showing up in a future episode of this video. So until next time, this is John Setzler with Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.